Hey guys, this is Thicken. I'm on my Sorcerer. I play Lightning in both Madness spec. I also do healing, but this isn't about being supportive. It's about doing your own thing and murdering things. So I'm going to first demonstrate the rotation and kind of explain a few things about why you do certain stuff as a Lightning Sorcerer and where all this burst damage comes from. So as you probably already know, there's two DPS specs. It's Madness and Lightning. Madness is like the damage over time dot spec. It's got a really static rotation, and all the damage is pretty much damage over time, so it's not front loaded. Lightning is the opposite; it's all front loaded damage, which means as soon as you finish the cast, your damage is fully dealt. There's no extra ticks and stuff. There's a couple of dots that we throw up there, but that's not the bulk of the Lightning Sorcerer damage. I'll start by talking about the AoE rotation, some stats, and some goals and that sort of stuff. So here on the screen, I've got the full 6-piece set of the Gathering Storm set. It makes 4 speed, which is like your sprint ability, a DPS cooldown, and so you're using 4 sprint on cooldown throughout the entire fight to boost your damage. And then obviously the 1 piece of amplified gear. So stats, all these guidelines, they're pretty much everywhere on the internet. Just Google up SWTOR Madness Sorcerer or Lightning Sorcerer, and you'll come to a Volk.com guide. That's where you get all these stats and all these things from, and also there's like some information about like which pieces of gear you should be wearing to get all your stats to where they actually need to be. Talks about set bonuses and things like that, but these are where the actual numbers come from. I've not done any math myself in this. I don't know what the actual in-game numbers are supposed to be for these percentages, but I kind of use these as a rough estimate because if you look at different classes, it's just a slightly different number to get the accuracy or alacrity caps or whatever. So kind of take them with a grain of salt. And they don't provide any proofs on this stuff, so we don't have any way to verify what they're actually saying is 100% true. So grain of salt. Basically, you're going for 110% accuracy or just a little bit over. Basically, this just prevents you from missing or getting resisted whenever you use your abilities on targets. Worst case scenario, you're at 109% accuracy, and it's your responsibility to interrupt this target. You have this fractional percentage chance to miss, and you cause the raid wipe because you're not at 110%. So don't be that guy. Just get 110% and then build your stats after that, and you can tweak things to fit your gear and what things you're getting to drop. The alacrity, again, 7.4 is what they say. I'm at 7.36%, which is 9 points low. I honestly don't know. I've tried with more alacrity, tried with less, and it doesn't feel any different. So get close to 7.4% is what they're recommending. And then everything else you just dump into critical and power and that sort of stuff. So this is the Volk.com one I was telling you about. You just Google it up, and you'll be good to go. So back to the game. Here's my personal stats. Just over 110% accuracy. I'm at just under 40% crit, which I have a crit buff right here. So I'm about 34% or just under 35% crit base stats. And then alacrity, again, just barely under what they're recommending. So that's the gear and the stats. Relic is another thing. For Lightning Sorcerer, just wear Stormwatch all the time. It's good for AoE, it's good for single target, it's the best for single target, so just wear it all the time. There might be circumstances where you want to have an actual defensive relic on for a particular fight. There's a ton of those. I'm not going to go into any of that. I'm just talking about killing things. Relics, you want to have an on-use relic and an on hit or on damage or whatever thing, so that you're constantly getting procs throughout the fight. Now you could theoretically wear 2 of these and activate them, but when you use one, it puts a cooldown on the other also. So I want to say it puts a 1 minute cooldown. So I guess theoretically you could constantly be rotating which relic you're using. I've never tested that, but I think that might be possible. I just don't think it's recommended. Get that out of the way. Okay, rotation. So we'll start with AoE. AoE rotation is super easy. You just do chain lightning on your target and then cast Force Storm. Whenever you cast Force Storm, it gives you this buff over here that makes your chain lightning instant cast. So you get a chain lightning, a Force Storm, and another instant cast chain lightning. That's huge AoE damage. There's like nothing in the game that does that much front-loaded AoE damage. There's some other classes that can do higher sustained, but front-load damage is all Sorcerer. In Veterans, you pretty much only have enough life on the target to only cast that one rotation once. If you cast 3 lightning storms, Force Storms after that instant cast, it actually resets the buff cooldown on you, and you can get another instant cast. So it's a whole huge pack of elites. Chain lightning, Force Storm, chain lightning, Force Storm, Force Storm, Force Storm, and then you get another chain lightning. So super good, super high AoE damage, and it's super easy. 2 buttons. Single target's obviously more because we have more abilities. There's a whole bunch of abilities we never use, or it's not recommended to use, like some Volt Rush. It's not a DPS loss if you can cast that while moving instead of using Lightning Bolt, but if you have a global cooldown to move, which is you just casted a spell, you can move within that global cooldown and not actually lose any cast time. So you get a second, or it's 1.4 seconds with our alacrity to move out of things, that sort of stuff. So you want to maximize your activity time when you're casting and have 0 downtime. Actions per minute is what we're going for. I'm going to turn on star parse here for you guys. Okay, there's star parse. We're going to go over this rotation. So single target, you always want to, like, tanks should know this, but a lot of them don't. But whenever you're going into a boss fight, you want to do a pull timer so people can maximize their uptime on the target, so that their fight starts the second the tank hits the mob with their first ability. So you do a 3-second pull timer. You say pulling in 3, 2, 1. We start casting at 2 seconds on this ability because it's 2.3 second cast time, so that the tank hits the boss and uses an ability, and then our abilities hit. That's how all of that should flow. But sometimes, if you have low threat or whatever, you're going to want to just start the fight afterwards. But anyways, you always start with Chain Lightning. You apply your dot, which is called Affliction, and then you cast Crushing Darkness. Now, you could say, instant cast Lightning Flash, because Lightning Flash reduces the cast time of Crushing Darkness, but it's actually takes longer to cast Crushing Darkness if you do that, because when you cast Lightning Flash, it adds 1.4 seconds before you can start casting Crushing Darkness, which if you take half a second off of Crushing Darkness, it's 1.3 seconds. So you're actually losing like almost 2 seconds of time instead of just applying it. And basically Crushing Darkness is what is going to increase your overall damage to that target. Puts a debuff on the boss. So it goes Chain Lightning, Affliction, Crushing Darkness, and then Shock. The reason why you do Crushing Darkness and then Shock is because when you cast Crushing Darkness, it increases the damage of your next Shock spell. Now it's like 8 seconds, so you can do Crushing Darkness and then Thundering Blast and then Shock, or Crushing Darkness, Shock, Thundering Blast. It's probably more efficient to do Shock after casting Thundering Blast, because after you cast Shock, you're just doing fillers until it's time to start your rotation over. But it's probably mathematically exactly the same. I don't have any maths to back it up with, so I'm just feely crafting this. So basically it's Chain Lightning, and I'll show you as I go through Chain Lightning, Affliction, Crushing Darkness, Thundering Blast, Shock, which gives a free Chain Lightning. And when you press that free Chain Lightning, it resets the timer on Affliction. And so after you cast that instant Chain Lightning, you're going to have Lightning Bolts that you're just going to spam like that. And then you're going to get instant casts on things like that. As soon as all your stuff comes off cooldown is when you should be restarting your rotation, essentially. So there's your other abilities like Force Speed, Polarity Shift, your Relic, and Recklessness that you're going to be using on cooldown as well. You do want to wait on your Relic to come off cooldown before using Recklessness again the second time. So you're going to have a use on each one of these abilities, and then Force Speed gets used all the time, and then Polarity Shift and Recklessness are going to get used in tandem, and then a full minute to later you're going to pop your whole entire load again. Obviously if the fight's long enough. So it's about maximizing the overlapping of your buffs, because everything that you're overlapping is a multiplicative multiplier to your damage, and it's not just additive to your damage. So instead of doing 1,000 damage, it's a multiplier, 15,000 damage essentially is how all that stuff stacks up. So the full rotation is going to look like this. And then whenever the cooldowns start coming up is when you're going to start refreshing things. And this time you're putting Lightning Flash in because your Crushing Darkness is not on cooldown. Now you're casting this. The whole thing. Instant procs. Force Speed's up again. Get your instant cast. Now the cooldown's coming up at the same time. And now everything lines up again. So it's a fairly static rotation. The only thing that really changes is whenever you pop Force Speed and you get your instant cast. And then you get a couple of instant casts that you like that. So almost on cooldown, you got Lightning Flash, Crushing Darkness, back into Shock, now Thundering Blast is actually up again. And this entire time your instant cast Chain Lightning refresh this dot. So, and that's it. It's pretty easy, it's pretty simple. It is much more dynamic than the Madness DPS spec, in that you get a lot of these instant casts. You get some procs that you're going to be pressing whenever they proc. And then because you have so many instant cast abilities or things that you can do while moving, it's the much, much higher mobility DPS class. The other Madness spec requires Force Lightning, which is a channeled ability, and it's freaking long. You have to basically turret up and just dump damage. So if you have a high mobility fight, you should be playing the Lightning spec. Okay, on to proficiencies. It's the same for both specs, which is super convenient for everybody. You just have to remember this one little layout. Obviously, this right here in a raid environment, you could change down to this, but that's pretty much the only thing that you're going to be changing. Damage reduction is great because we're light armor wearers. The only absolutely mandatory abilities are Surging Speed, which reduces the cooldown on Force Speed by 5 seconds. It does some other stuff, but I don't really care about it. It doesn't have anything to do with DPS. And then this right here lets you cast Thundering Blast while moving, which is super convenient. Alright, I'm going to switch over to the other one. Show you guys Madness. And then reset on my bars. Alright, AoE is, again, it's not front loaded like Lightning spec. It's easy to do, but it takes longer to actually get rolling. And because a lot of the AoE damage comes from dot damage, you just can't do as much AoE damage in like a veteran or even a master mode flashpoint, because targets don't have as much health, especially a whole group of targets. So you always want to spread your dots off of the highest health target. If there's an elite or a silver mob or a champion level mob, you want to spread off of that mob before you start casting your Force Storm ability. So it looks like this. You put Affliction on there, and then you put Creeping Terror. You can Force Leech. It depends on how much health the ad has, and then you drop Death Field. The only way that this changes when you drop Death Field is if you're not running this Slow Mercy tactical, which Slow Mercy basically, whenever you cast Crushing Darkness, it also hits all of the targets that have Death Field applied to them. So when you're not wearing this, you you demolish and then Death Field. If you are wearing Slow Mercy, then you Death Field then demolish. Not a huge difference, but it's a slight difference. So as you can see that here, Slow Mercy, you can read that. Just a good for AoE thing. And while you're in a Flashpoint or whatever, you can always easily switch between tacticals just by putting it on the bar, and you can just click it. As you can see there, it just instantly changes. You can only do it while out of combat, and you need to get in a habit of checking that you have the right one equipped as you go into fights. So Slow Mercy is equipped now. I'll show you this AoE rotation with it equipped. And then you can double tap AoE abilities and they'll go on your target. And that's it. So now I've got all of the stuff on there. Now I'm going to just be Force Storming until it's usually 3. Whenever you cast the third one, this Death Field comes off, and then you can reapply all your dots as they fall off. And the timing is just really smooth once you hit the right alacrity. So that's AoE. It's really easy. I gotta get out of combat. So the single target rotation is pretty similar to the AoE rotation, because the only thing that really changes is instead of using Force Storm, you're using Force Lightning, which gives you some instant cast things or some procs. With your opener, it's always the same. You always start with Demolish on pull. So it's pulling in 3, 2, 1. You start casting at 1, and it hits a second after the fight actually starts. And then it goes Demolish. Then you apply your dots. It can be in any order. I just do it in this order. So Affliction, Force Leech, Creeping Terror, and then Death Field. And then after that, it's Force Lightning. And when you channel Force Lightning, it puts these Fulminating Current stacks on you. And at every 4th stack, you get an instant cast Demolish or an instant cast Lightning Strike, which is really important for your rotation, because the only time you have to cast Demolish as a hard cast is as if you messed up, there was downtime, and all your other stuff fell off, like your buffs and stuff fell off, or on opener. So opener, you hard cast it, put up your dots, and then you use all your cooldowns. Then you start channeling your Force Lightning, and you do Lightning Strike. And on the initial, whenever you're doing it smooth, and you use all your cooldowns, you get 3 casts of Lightning Strike. So you have 3 full channels of Force Lightning and 3 casts of Lightning Strike. As you cast this 3rd Lightning Strike, Demolish comes off cooldown. So as you're channeling your 4th Force Lightning, it's now time to reapply Demolish, and all of your dots are just now to like less than 2 seconds remaining. So they have 1 tick of damage left. So you do that instant cast, you start reapplying your dots again. Your Death Field just now came up as you're casting Force Leech, and everything comes right perfectly back into line. With the spec, you don't have anything that refreshes your dots automatically, unless you're refreshing dots on something else. Death Field will spread full duration dots to your other targets. That's why it's hard to do AoE damage when things don't have a lot of health, because a lot of your damage takes 18 seconds to happen, and trash on veteran flashpoints or mastermind flashpoints don't last 18 seconds. So I will put on the correct Tempest of Row, which is the actual correct single target tactical. Same set pieces, everything else. The only thing I'm changing now is tactical. Show you the full rotation with some DPS cooldowns in here. I've got a bit on that one, so I'll just go ahead and show that to you one more time. So with polarity shift up, you'll see I'll get 3 of these before. That's what I would attack with. And then right when I cast the next Demolish, Affliction and Creepy Tear have just fallen off. And this is the rotation, so it's really static because you're using Force Lightning instead of Lightning Bolt as your builder, because it takes a lot longer to get the instant cast stuff. It really makes the mobility low. Yes, you have lots of instant cast abilities and things that you can cast while moving, but you don't actually gain any DPS by casting or refreshing a dot, because that damage on a dot is for the duration of the dot. So if you cut it short, which the normal rotation actually clips the Affliction and the Creeping Terror by about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of a fight, you're losing, 10,000 damage or 50,000 damage, depending on how long the fight is, which is a considerable amount of damage. But by not clipping it, it makes the rotation really, really clunky. If you do a priority list of cast it when it's off cooldown or when the dot's falling off, you will technically gain a few DPS, but it makes the rotation so much more difficult. It's really not sustainable through any duration of a fight other than standing in front of a dummy, because you're having to move and things like that. So it screws up that rotation even worse than keeping this static rotation. So as soon as this comes off cooldown, I will show you the full measure of damage that you can get out of the Madness spec, which it's considerably higher single target damage than the Lightning spec. So here we go. And see, this is where it clicked, is on the second round. Make sure you're always using your force speed buffs. And you want to try to use it on the instant cast Lightning Strike that you're getting, the force speed, because it gives bonus damage to a single ability. And so if you can do a hard hitting ability, it's much better. It's good to do force speed before you do death, because it is a very hard hitting ability. I just screwed with rotation. It is a very hard hitting ability, but it's a lot easier to pop it on Lightning Strike, because you know when Lightning Strike's going to be up all the time. So you can dump a lot of damage as this spec, definitely a single target spec, but it's a low mobility. You have the movement in between your global cooldowns and that sort of stuff. So if you have any questions, message me in Discord. I'm going to be making some other videos for my other characters that I do DPS on, to help people with rotations and that sort of stuff. So feel free to message me. Take care, guys.